Thinking we should do is amend the agenda just slightly, and we have not voted on a vice chair. And I was thinking that we probably should open the meeting to have the nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Becky.
And second, I'll second the nomination. Anyone else? Anyone want to move to close the nominations? I move to close. Second. All in favor of Becky? You're the vice chair.
Thank you.
Your pay is not going to be affected.
Oh, good. That was killing me on my taxes this year, you know.
As in the past, we have citizen comments for 10 minutes. Would you folks care to raise your hand so we can divide by the number of hands? We have one, so 1 into 10, guess what? 10. You're up, Ed.
Okay, at the end of the last meeting, Jill asked a question and Dennis answered it, but I don't think the answer was correct. And I just want to, you'll get to it in your minutes anyway, but, and it dealt with expedited process. And he said that it doesn't fall, that Greenwood doesn't fall under the expedited process. But every organized town in Maine, unless they ban wind, falls under the expedited process. Townships, there was about a third of the townships that initially were left off by LUPC. Then Milton and other townships went through that process last year of getting removed, and about 40 got removed. But other than that, if you're an organized town, you are in the expedited area under that process, unless you ban wind.
And that has to be a separate town vote.
That's something different. I mean, that's if you didn't have a restrictive ordinance, then you'd have to have a ban to not be under the expedited process. The expedited process covers all organized towns, unless you specifically create a ban.
And they did say towns, not territories.
Organized towns.
Organized and unorganized.
And
Unorganized is
automatic.
unorganized. No, unorganized. There's two kind of categories of them. One is the ones that are about a third of all of LUPC's, the Land Use Planning Commission's lands initially under the Wind Energy Act. About a third of them were exempted from that in 2008. And then the others were left in the expedited process. Last year they had the opportunity to take and be petitioned, or 2 years ago, to petition to get off of the expedited process, and 40 of them, 40 additional ones were taken off the expedited process. But all organized towns are in the expedited area unless they have banned industrial wind.
Thank you for that update. Ed.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
How many towns have banned wind?
I don't know the exact number now. It might be 30 or 40, somewhere in there. I haven't seen it lately as far as to see if any additional ones have been put on there.
Thank you.
Another thing I had, we've been talking about views and where they should be. And I found a really good reference that was from a couple years ago, but it was an Appalachian Mountain Club, and I'll give you this.
Okay.
But it really identified that the place to put views is in your comprehensive plan. It's already accounted for. There was no reason to do anything different. But you talked about having maybe a couple of places that you might put in your wind ordinance, and then just reference the comprehensive plan until you get a chance to update the comprehensive plan. Well, one of the places that I've been thinking about, because I think in your comprehensive plan you have Payne's Ledge is I think listed in there, but that's from Greenwood Road looking at Payne's Ledge. I think it should also be from Payne's Ledge looking towards Elwell and Long Mountain and Devitt's Mountain. So if it was one I would put in now, it would be that one, and then you catch everything else up when you review.
P-A-Y-N?
Hmm?
P-A-Y-N or?
Payne, P-A-Y-N-E, I think it is. Mhm. And then the third thing I had was looking at the Sumner, their wind ordinance. And one of the things that I came across that I thought could be useful, and because you're gonna be discussing anything else you wanna put in the plan tonight, and I'll leave this with you too. It's under the category mitigation waivers, but it's the third paragraph. It says the property owner shall provide a notarized complete copy of such filing and recording to the board within 30 days of signing the waiver. Until the board receives such a copy, mitigation waiver shall have no legal force under this ordinance. The applicant shall include, as part of the industrial wind energy facility application, a complete list of all parcels subject to the mitigation waiver, included in the names and mailing addresses of landowners. The reason why I think that's important to put in there is that we're talking about 30, they have, when somebody signs a waiver, they have 30 days to get it registered on their deed and provide a copy to the town. And I think that otherwise, what we see happening is that sometimes it's 3 or 4 years later that we even discover that that someone is looking at putting in an industrial wind turbine farm. So by putting that requirement on the landowner, if he signs a waiver, he's got 30 days to get it registered and to the town. And I think that it's a good way of finding out, earlier on in the process rather than later on in the process, that there's some interest in by a developer in the area. So I got both of those. It's the one from Appalachian on the Club. And because we're back on 2 pages, this is the one I just read to you. Okay. Summary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, have we reviewed the minutes of our last meeting? And I'll accept the motion to accept them.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Minutes are accepted. John, you now have the floor.
Thank you. Kim was nice enough to send me a mocked up copy with track changes on it, which I used to do that. Also read the minutes of the meeting. So what I did here was try to highlight the changes from the ones you looked at the last time. And I'd like to start out on right on page 1, item 1. Made some changes on this. It wasn't, I think there was some comments that you people made on that, but there was I see 2 separate things here. There's one on historic sites, and then there's I consider a whole separate issue on scenic locations. So with the historic sites, we had they'd be identified within 1 mile, and there's some questions on that. Because I think a historic site is usually a location. And the impact on a historic location usually from disturbance or something close to it. I don't see why, if there's a commercial wind energy project and there's a historic location a mile away from it, really don't see impact on that historic location of building from that. As far
Unless
as
it might be visual.
right, just do historic, okay? Because, so I said there's gonna be, in my opinion, something better. So what I suggested here, that if any historic location within 1,000 feet of an area to be disturbed as part of the project would need to be identified. Disturbed would mean, you know, the roads leading to it, the wind tower. 1,000 feet's maybe not the exact number, but I was thinking about how a historic location could be impacted other than by sound. Okay, we still on sound, we still have the levels to do that. So anyway, that's something to think about. I thought a mile was excessive, and a mile from the facility location, whether it's a non-protected location. So I thought a mile was sort of arbitrary in relationship to that. The same thing I thought about a mile from a scenic location. So I suggested here that the landowner would identify, maybe impacted isn't the best term, but a scenic resource at any distance. Again, this is just being identified as part of the application, would be identified in the application that would be impacted by the commercial wind energy facility. Again, get rid of the mile, get rid of on the scenic location. So we're going to be, if the applicant, as part of the information submitted, would need to identify those scenic locations that are identified that would be impacted by the facility, period. Get rid of the mile, do a much broader one on impacted. I think in your visual analysis, I can't remember whether it's an 8-mile thing that could be, you need to do a study on. So we, whatever would be impacted, an applicant would have to look at whatever scenic locations you have that are identified, and if they would be impacted, that location, something sticking up in it that's not normal, identify, and then those historic sites that are within 1,000 feet of the disturbed areas to be disturbed on that would be identified in the application. Again, I was thinking the historic sites may be on the property within 1 mile of, or on the property of the applicant, or has an easement on those properties. 1 mile may not have, and I don't see as far as the submission material that would be necessary to do that.
Is that a state requirement, 1
No.
mile?
No,
What's the state requirement?
I think, I'm not gonna answer for sure, you've got that right required, but the wind towers fall under the Site Location Development Act, generally on a number of things. And usually that Site Location Development Act just deals with the property that's under review. For example, a shopping center, for example, and again, I'm not sure how they deal with the historic locations for wind energy, but I would assume it would be in the project area.
Now, is 1 mile arbitrary, is 1,000 feet arbitrary?
Yes.
Okay.
I was just trying to think of what, again, this is disturbed area.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the project site may be 10 acres, it may be 1,000 acres. I just felt that the concern is with impact or disturbance of a historic site, which is most cases private property, except maybe that there's some at public town, like the Grange Hall or something. I'm not sure if that's identified in your list of historic locations. So again, my feeling was the biggest danger of those historic locations is either disturb them, dig them up. You know, if I'm going through, if I'm going to take down the ice caves as part of this, you probably want to know that and have the applicant deal with that. So anyways, I thought combining, saying 1 mile for any scenic location as it reads now, and any scenic location, scenic resource or historic site within 1 mile of the proposed development facility, and I changed it associated with the community, CWEF. Just thought it was,
Pardon me.
I wanted, again, I wanted to separate a mile because it was double a mile with both historic locations and scenic locations. What happens if it's a mile point, 2 miles for a scenic location would be impacted. I just said any one thing would be impacted on the scenic location. And again, secondly, take the historic site out separately, and if it's in with 1,000 feet of area to be disturbed. Again, this is just for submission requirements.
I like the change. I support it.
Any comments?
And again, this would be on both, because your question, the comment from Kim anyways, was should this reference participating and non-participating property lines? I just said it doesn't matter if it's in 1,000 feet.
Yep.
So. That's my reasoning.
Do we need to vote on that, Larry?
It's the opinion of the committee. Should we vote on it?
Be safe.
Okay. Entertain a motion?
I'll move that we accept John's proposed changes to item 1, section 1401.3.d.1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, it passes.
All right, well, you want me to continue?
Sure.
All the changes from 11 to 10 a.m. has been provided in there. That was changed throughout. I'm on page 3 now, in the handout. Make sure I'm following 2 things here, give me a minute. I guess on that, on item B, what you see crossed out was it was based upon this question, where there's a question was, it said no one in the planning board qualified to make that determination on item 2. You can see there. As I reviewed this, I felt that item I above dealt with that, and we just get rid of that provision, because that provision says the planning board finds that due to their character and duration were particularly annoying. And secondly, you set specific DBA levels, so my opinion that wasn't necessary.
The only question I have, John, though, is on in section I, you wanna call it that.
Yep, yes.
Alright, that's, that has to do with daytime pre-development and the hours, so forth and so on. Section 2 is strictly, for short-term repetitive sounds. So, I mean, you could leave in there, because then you're basically taking out that whole section, but you could leave in there for short duration repetitive sounds, and take out the, which, you could take out which goes, which the planning board finds, and then restart the sentence, so it would go for short duration repetitive sounds. 5 dBA shall be added to be observed, because this is strictly just for short-term repetitive sounds.
Okay.
So I think it really does have some relevance.
All right, because when I was, can you go down to the one that says that for any protected location, right, that is not predominantly commercial, transportation, or industrial,
Right.
I had questions.
Where are we? Where?
What page you on?
I'm on, actually on page 3,
Okay.
the second paragraph, which shows to be struck
Oh,
out,
okay.
and what's following it proposed to be struck out. Is that on my notes from Kim, that what you had talked about was changing 65 between 7 and 11 p.m. to 35, and from 10 to 7 p.m. to 25. So those are the standards for noise. So I felt, well, if you're gonna change those levels, they're the same as what the level is for all the time. So why do you need to, you know, if you were gonna go along with that change, then if you remember, again, this was,
Right.
it was recommended to change
Right.
those down. So
Right.
they are the exact same sounds as you can. You're not giving them any break, so to say, on those sounds. So I just felt, hey, it's 25 and 35, period. You know, you're not gonna do whatever this is, 65 and
55, yeah.
55.
Right.
So I think it wasn't needed if you were gonna make that change to those basic hardcore numbers.
I agree with that. We've been very concerned about the DBA levels, so, Brad?
World Health Organization
Yep.
recommendations. Yeah.
Right.
So what you're doing, what this says is if you're doing on I, if you're doing those short duration repetitive sounds, there's a 5 dBA. But because you're taking out that the planning board makes that determination in double I, and it's written, it would allow, when the planning board makes that determination, could go up to 65 and 55. If you want to keep the 65 and 55, yes, Dennis, I think we need to keep the second part of that paragraph II.
Yeah.
But if you don't, it
Yeah.
doesn't make much
Yeah.
difference.
And the new state standards for that anyway are 60 and 50.
60 and 50, that.
Yeah.
That's what I got from
So that's sort of my explanation, the reason I said that, we can get rid of this because we're not, because again, you suggested at your last meeting, those 65 and 55, you changed to 35 and 25.
And so your recommendation is that BII be eliminated?
Correct. Based upon what
Right.
you people discussed at the meeting last time.
Right, and then we have a separate section on construction sounds.
Right, that begins on B.
Okay.
And again, this, hopefully it's not confusing to you, but on this sort of new one, I only included things that had been changed, particularly under sound. But if you go back and I still have the one from last meeting, you can see that. I guess I still had questions on the next one, on B, sound from construction facilities. And I didn't see anything in here that, where I have a big question right there, is that you're okay with these B, sound from construction, between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Shall not exceed the following limits at any protected location.
And you're talking about the 12 hours, 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours, 3, 2, and 1?
Yes. Right. And again, I had questions on those when I did the first draft, and I put questions there whether you were okay with those.
So John, these hours here, are they cumulative? So let's just say, I mean, I mean, obviously during construction of wind towers, there's blasting, so I mean.
Right.
But blasting can only last, you know, that can last 30 seconds, so I mean, is it accumulative, or is it just, how does that work?
My interpretation would be, if I'm blasting and it's 105 dBA,
You have 1 hour or less.
you have 1 hour during that,
Okay.
during that time period, yes.
Yeah, okay.
If you have some blasts that hasn't got as much dynamite in it,
Mhm.
less and you stay within 100, that's what it is, but.
Should 12 hours be eliminated?
I was wondering that too.
Well,
Doesn't that take you to nighttime?
we're at 7 to 10 p.m. We have now, if you go to I, the sound from construction activities between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. is
Okay.
subject to the following, so you
Yeah.
can,
You can
those
exceed
can
that.
those can be during.
So why did that ever get changed anyway from 7 AM? Why did that get changed from 7 PM to 11 and back to 10? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that, you know, to extend it out to 10 PM.
It should be 7 to 10 because that's what we found was actually written in the other, in the recommendations. It wasn't 7 to 11.
No, but okay, that's fine. I'm just saying you're extending it. You originally had where they could do construction activities from 7 AM to 7 PM. Now you're saying they can do construction activities from 7 AM to 10 PM. I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean,
Probably not, but I think that's how it's written right now in your site review ordinance,
okay.
because of and under, I'm looking under your current standards in your site review, general standards in site review, okay? You have, I'm looking noise created by construction and temporary maintenance activities between 6:30 and 8 AM. That's exempt from these provisions in your
From
general performance
6:30
standards.
to what, John?
6:30 to 8,
6:30 to 8?
yeah.
Right. And that's just for other general construction?
That, yeah, if
So-
I was just doing a regular site.
Right, you're just doing a regular site.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, you know, here you are to the potential with a large project and you're extending it out to 10 PM.
Right. And again, I sort of think, well, can we just take a quick look?
Yeah, yeah.
Let someone else get their ordinance off, they can find faster than me.
Are you thinking that we should leave it?
I think you should leave it back to 7 AM to 7 PM.
Yeah,
I just don't understand why you want to
I
extend it
like
out,
that
you know,
too.
to 3 hours. It doesn't
why
make
should
any
we
sense
be,
to me.
why should we be having construction that late at night?
Right, that's right, yeah.
Why should it be that early in the morning?
You know,
Uh,
that's the general time of starting. That's,
7 is a general, I think 7 is a general starting time for most construction people. And I think for a short-term project, I don't think that's asking too much.
Yeah. But-
5 AM, I would question, but 7 AM, I don't think is asking too much.
So John, I understand where you're kind of getting it from, but, I mean, I think just to go to 10 o'clock at night, construction wise,
That's
doesn't
right.
make sense to me at all. So I mean, I think you ought to go back to the original of 7 AM to 7 PM, be done, and leave it alone.
I would agree.
So we got a routine operation and then we have construction.
Yeah, I mean, construction is short term,
Yep.
one,
Yep.
you know, like I said,
Okay, yeah, it says your current ordinance is
yeah,
is from 7 AM and 7 PM.
7 PM.
Sound construction activities between 7 AM and 7 PM,
Yeah.
so not exceed.
I'm okay with changing it to that.
7.
yeah.
Leaving it at that,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it
okay.
just didn't make any sense to me when I read it, but.
that's easy enough.
And I think the confusion was that it was the operation, construction, and the differential. Okay.
And my question on the 12 hours, if we now only have 7 to 7,
That's 12 hours.
but is that 87 continuous?
Yes.
Yes.
And you could get that with construction vehicles, bringing in fill and doing that sort of activity all day long.
So John, can we just back up to
Sure.
BI, okay?
BI, back
Okay,
there.
The top, okay. It says the sound from construction activities between 7 AM. Aren't we just gonna have one, I mean, you're gonna set one period of time that they can have construction, basically from
Yeah.
7 AM to 7 PM, correct?
Right.
Okay, so,
You can have construction as long as you don't exceed that noise level, right?
Well, I don't think we
Not-
want to have
I-
construction
no,
at
I-
night
I
from
don't-
7
no,
PM
That's what
to.
I'm trying to say, John.
Okay, all right.
I'm just saying, it is one construction period, from 7 AM in the morning to 7 PM at night. During that time, here are the DVA levels during that time. So you don't need to have two sections here, you can really only have just the one section.
Okay,
Construction activities are allowed between 7 AM and 7 PM, blah, 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 blah.
Shall not exceed the following limits and skip the II.
And yeah, you don't need two different ones.
okay, that's easy
Does
enough.
that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Want to clarify construction activity.
Any, I mean, you could just put any construction activity. You could put, from 7 AM to 7 PM.
Would that, Dennis, include, let's say I've got a crane and, my electricians are wiring up my feet, is that construction?
Well, but at that point, okay, I mean, you're not, I mean, if somebody's doing some wiring, you're not even making any noise.
Okay.
I mean, it's not,
So,
I guess I'm relating construction activity, I'm relating the construction activity to these noise levels here, not to like maintenance. That would, to me, that's a that's not construction,
Okay.
that's maintenance of a
Yep.
piece of equipment.
so I can get this clear that after 7 PM, any noise associated with maintenance or whatever would not exceed what your standard 25 dBA is at
Yes.
unprotected
Right,
property.
after the 7 PM, it goes back to, none of these in this 1, 2, 3 hours of construction goes back to the 25 and 35.
And realistically, how do you monitor this? How do you monitor this?
Well, get a complaint, then
That's right, it comes down to complaint, and then you put a, then they have to put up a sound.
we've got a very good complaint protocol.
So we're just gonna leave it at one, John, I think. I think that just makes a
Yes.
whole lot of sense.
Right, yes.
And if somebody's doing some wiring or something like that, that's just a maintenance deal.
Right, okay.
And if it's outside of the hours of 7 AM to 7 PM, then it reverts back to the noise levels.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, good.
So
Okay.
scratch two, in other words.
Well,
Aye.
he basically gonna reconfigure the whole thing.
Right.
You're gonna put the two in the one, basically.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, in essence,
So-
just scratch the two.
Is that Sunday, 7 days a week?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I still, again, if you turn to page 4, and you have comments, when I write this, I want to make sure that you can justify the differences between the general standard for noise and the special standards for commercial wind energy facilities. And I think what I did here, we kept the 7 and 10. There's been a couple discussions about, because we don't have zoning in Greenwood, about getting rid of residential, commercial, and industrial in the wind energy ordinance, and I just thought if we did that, do we want to keep that in the general sound information where we, nature, and I can't remember how I dealt with that, but probably more a question. I just wanted to make sure if we want to, on A, again, this would be amendment to your general standard, we want to change the construction and maintenance activities to the new standard from 7 to 7 instead of 6:30 to 8:30 in your general standard. To make it consistent.
Make it
Yes,
consistent.
yes,
Yeah.
it would be very, very smart to make it consistent.
Okay. The other thing I thought about it was I was doing this, having worked in ski country and writing audiences, was that, again, this doesn't do the wind powers, but if Mount Abrams wanted to expand their mountain, and part of that expansion, it came to the planning board, was snowmaking. Snow guns, as we heard, can make some noise. In Newry, when I worked on their ordinances, we exempted snow guns from the noise standard. And again, this is a side, but whether you want to think about that. And the other thing we exempted from noise up to Sunday River was special events. For example, when they had their full,
Bustin' burn.
busting,
Or
stuff.
the truck thing.
Yeah, but anyway, that's just something to think about. I'm not wanting to,
But can't something like that be addressed outside of the wind ordinance?
yes, I'm just saying that, because I was doing this, I was just thinking about that, because we're gonna have to make an amendment to it as part of this whole wind adjustment thing to the site review to change the date, time, so something to think about. Let's keep on wind, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, because
So-
that's, I mean, as far as administering it from the
Right.
planning board end of it, it's already, as far as Mount Aiken goes, it's already a current activity.
Okay.
So it's not like
Just
they
the
would want to
expansion.
just be an expansion, so it's already a current activity.
So on this page 4,
Yes,
everything that's in yellow, what are we, what were we questioning? What were you questioning?
I was just questioning to have certain things consistent with the two ordinance, so someone doesn't say, boy, you're discriminating against this wind because you're allowing the old mill down here, when they reestablish, if they get site plan, to have a DBA level of 70 down there at the property line.
So are we changing these residential, commercial, and industrial? Is that what?
Not
we're
at this
talking-
time. Just food for thought, maybe it was too much food.
Well, it's like it says, we have no zoning in Greenwood, so
Right.
residential,
Right.
commercial, industrial.
So I'm wondering if residential shouldn't be our 25 and 35.
I don't know, I don't wanna let's get this wind stuff taken care of. I just
That
think
was
it's
designed
something,
for rural, I think.
I think it's something to deal with, but
Okay.
it's something that,
Mm.
I think it's
We can look at it at a future.
Yes.
In the event that it becomes
an issue. All
a
right,
zoning situation, yeah,
right,
Okay,
but it may be something that comes up to the town,
at some point,
okay.
100 years from now.
Could be tomorrow. All right,
5.
I'm on page 5. This is measurement, location, configuration, and environment. Had a question here on, if you see on C. There was a question about 4 to 5, I think maybe it was from Jesse.
Yes.
Right,
We got some recommendations from
Terry,
Ambrose.
Ambrose, right.
And we're gonna leave it at 4 to 5.
Okay, all right, good.
On F, it goes C to F. I
Right.
don't know if that's supposed to be D, but it says measurement period shall be avoided when the local wind speed exceeds 12 miles per hour or precipitation would affect the measurement results.
Right.
My only question on that was when I was reading, I think it was Ambrose, I don't remember which one it was, but I read both of them. And one of them said, yeah, above 12, you could affect that. But the other one said, at the speed of the wind where the largest sound would be generated by the wind tower. And I would like to go with that, because I think if we limit it to 12 miles per hour, then if you end up with towers that can operate at higher wind speeds,
Right.
that may generate more offensive sound, and I think we need to include that. So I would like to put that in there, and
I think what they were saying, Becky, is the reason why they're doing 12 miles an hour is because after 12 miles an hour, the wind masks the noise. It doesn't-
right, but then
So-
the other guy said, notwithstanding, I understand that, but notwithstanding that, as technologies change and everything, the higher the wind, the difference in what is going to be an offensive sound that may be coming from the wind tower. So I think we have to just put that in as an or, whatever Ambrose said. I don't have that piece of paper with me, I'm sorry.
I think it was Mike that said
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's something on a follow-up, you asked for.
Yes, or, let's see, I believe the best wind speeds are the ones at which the wind turbine is shown to produce the highest sound level based on vendor testing.
So just put that as a second paragraph.
Yes, I would just put it in as an or at that.
Okay. Kim, that's something you can provide me?
Yeah, it's right here.
Okay, thank you.
Just thinking, and I'm only thinking about that because if we put ourselves in too tight of a window, we may eliminate ourselves from addressing something that could happen as technology changes, and I think that we need to keep that in mind as we go forward.
Very good. All right, you had a question, I'm on page 6 of my, what you got tonight. You had a question about the meaning of representative, and if the wording non-participating or participating should be included. Make sure measurements are taken near wind facility site, not yet site specific. So I just highlighted that, and I wasn't exactly sure what was conducted or doing. Basically, it says a pre-development ambient sound. This is pre-development. Be made at representative protected locations.
Yeah, that's fine. Because a protected location is the property line.
Right, property line of anyone that's not.
So I mean, whether you
participating.
use protected, or you use the words, participating and non-participating, it's the same.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing, so. Okay.
And I think the rest of that was put in there because there had been some concerns that when someone had a complaint and they went in to test that, if the sound happened after 5 o'clock, that when the testers went in there, they said, oh, 5 o'clock, time to go home, and so they didn't test for the sound after that particular time, but, so we were just making sure that it should be made during all hours that the
Right.
facility will
I
operate.
think later on it says, measurements shall also be made during all hours that the facility will operate.
Right, yeah.
Okay. We're okay there.
Yeah.
The next one is infrasound limits. And I've got a note here. This is where we tried to do some stuff, or I tried to do some stuff first. all measurements are taken on any protected adjacent residential use property. But we have property that's not residential, and this is where, Mike, I believe it is, included the zoning terminology, and we wanted to eliminate that. And I'd suggested, or on adjacent property, protected land where residential use is feasible based upon suitability. That's really not a good one. And you folks suggested, just leave that on adjacent protected land. So where would this would be, all measurements are taken on any protected adjacent land that's not participating. And that would be, protected land would be at the property line. It wouldn't be at the structure. Just so you understand that.
But if I'm reading this correctly, all measurements are taken on any protected adjacent residentially used property, which is, protected means non-participating, or on adjacent protected land, which again is participating, no, non-participating.
Correct.
Protected land where, and so we're just leaving it on adjacent protected land, period? Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what you discussed,
Okay.
based upon Kim, at the last meeting. So
Because
if
we
you want-
had a question about feasibility. I think that
I
was,
know.
I think that was where our.
I can understand that. I just hoping you discussed it a little bit.
So, we did discuss it, so I'm asking your opinion, should we leave that in, feasible based on suitability?
See, the reason I put suitability in was that there could be some cases where there's slopes like this, there's a big wetland, it's really not, but it's hard to tell. There's gonna be discussion. We can put a septic system almost anywhere now.
No, not anymore,
Not anymore.
not anymore.
Uh,
No, if it has over 20 degree
20
degree
degrees.
slope, we can't put in a septic system. So that would eliminate anything on any
Right.
side hills or anything else
Right.
like that.
I think it's simple to say, okay, cut it off. It's gonna be, a protected, if I have, let's say, a 50-acre lot and my house is in the middle of it, that infrasound standard's gotta be met at my property line. So could be 500 feet from the edge of my property line or 10 feet. So it's, again, if I remember the infrasound, it was more of coming into a structure building. This will be even more stringent, I think, if you just leave it at the protected, on or adjacent protected land, period.
Okay. So your recommendation is to have it read, all measurements are taken on any protected adjacent residentially used property or on adjacent protected land.
Period. Is that period?
Yes,
Okay, so cross off where residential use is feasible.
correct.
Okay.
You'd still include measurement inside the building
Oh, yeah.
or residence if it's.
And also the sound measurement of 1 mile per 100 foot of tower. That still applies, right?
The which one?
The 1 mile per 100 foot of tower height for DB.
We haven't, that setback is, that, we haven't changed that. Or you
Okay,
can
all
recommend
right.
changing
So
it.
that would apply there, okay.
Okay, yep, good. Then, on page 7, someone made a question of why windmill couldn't be shut down. Again, I'm just repeating the comments in this. Again, a question on this background information on triple I, on page 7. Question as to why a turbine could not be shut down. Any ideas? I don't know. I think they can tether them most of the time, but I'm not sure. So that was just, because the question was, it would be, infrasound pressure shall be measured with the wind turbine shut down at all locations for at least one series of 3 measurements. These were written by Mike.
Batarian, yep.
So, I'm sure you're not gonna try to outguess him.
No.
Well, they have to be able to shut down the turbines to do regular maintenance.
I would think so.
They shut them down for a number of reasons. They shut them down, obviously, they shut them down for a number of reasons.
All right, I didn't hear that, my hearing.
I think the question on why can't a wind turbine not be shut down, I think the question is, it can be shut down for any reason, so
Okay.
I don't think we need that.
All right, page 10, I corrected a spelling error, revised some numbering.
So John, we're gonna take out if the wind turbine cannot be shut down, then just eliminate that.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a question, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's in the, shall be measured, so we just get rid of the, if the cannot be shut down.
Yes.
And we stop at measurements, and the rest of it is gone. That's the understanding, right? Okay, move.
Okay, I'm on page 12. The reason I did this, was that, well, let's go to 13, probably a good thing. In your current ordinance on the page, top of page 13, it reads sound pressure limit 10 times the common.
Yeah.
And when Mike did his definitions, he did 20 times the logarithm to the base 10. So there's a difference there. I don't know what the difference is between 10 times and 20 times. I wanted to ask whether you wanted to go with Mike's definition that he submitted as part of his work he did for you people, 20 instead of 10.
I would propose we go with what, Mr. Batarian said,
Right.
20 times, that would be my recommendation.
And then potential other conflict I saw was on, flip that page 12 if you don't mind. Sound level, the definition, it used 10 times the common logarithm of the square of the ratio of the frequency, and all this good stuff. I don't know whether 10 times and 20 times makes a difference in that definition. Mike didn't suggest to change the sound level. I just want to make sure there wasn't a conflict between what you want to use for the new sound pressure level definition and the sound level definition you have in there, and maybe that's something you could shoot off to Mike to clarify that. I just don't want to have a conflict and have
Right. Okay,
engineers arguing.
let's send that out
Yep.
and just make sure that we're not, contradicting ourselves. Can you do that? Yeah. Great, thank you.
Yes, right.
So that, other than that one, we've agreed on all of the changes, is that correct?
I believe so.
So, notwithstanding something coming back from Michael Batarian on that sound pressure level contradiction that we have, can we accept what we've discussed and agreed upon for the changes that John has brought up and brought to us?
Entertain a motion
So moved.
What is the motion?
that we accept what John has just suggested, with the exception of contacting Mike Batarian
About the contradiction on the 20 times.
Right, and there was some suggestions from the committee too, and I'm not sure you took a vote on all of them, but they were changing a couple things, but I think you voted on, decided on a couple of them. I just want to make sure that you're agreeable on everything we talked about.
Okay, I think we agreed on page 1, I believe, to go with 1,000 feet.
Yes,
We agreed on page 2, 7 to
10.
No.
Oh, 7 to
7 to 7.
yes.
No, that's the, while the thing is in operation.
In the operation, we said 7 to 10, 10 to 7. That's
Right.
fine.
And
It
that's
was
the operation, so-
The construction, we changed to
Right.
7
To 7.
to 7. So on page 3 was the 7 to 7.
Right,
We took we accepted the cross out of BII,
Right.
and we accepted the 12 hours and the DBAs for construction activity.
On page 3, we didn't change, we're not suggesting to change the ordinance, because the ordinance says 7 to 7,
Yes,
correct?
yes, it does.
So we just agreed it was 7 to 7 for
And that's in the ordinance,
construction.
so there's no change.
Okay. On section 4,
On page 4, yeah.
page 4, excuse me, that was all okay, we didn't
Well,
change.
7 and 7, down the bottom, it says no
3A.
temporary maintenance activities between 7 and 7. We're trying to keep
Oh,
everything-
right, we're changing 3A, excuse me.
We're making sure everything is consistent, and I think we made that general statement, everything consistent
Yes.
with the 7 to 7
Okay, you're
for
right.
construction.
Thank you.
Yes.
Operation 7 to 10, construction 7 to 7, okay.
On page 5, we said okay to 4 to 5 feet on C. And we said measurement period shall be avoided when the wind exceeds 12 miles per hour and/or precipitation. And then we added that section
On the
that
vendors.
says, the best wind
Okay.
speeds are the ones at which the wind turbine is shown to produce the highest sound level based on vendor testing.
Yes,
So
Tim will
we'll
get
add
you that
that.
wording.
correct.
Pre-development ambient sound,
Mm-hmm.
that was okay the way it was written?
Is this CIA?
Correct.
Yes.
And then infrasound level limits,
Period after on
Lane.
adjacent protected lane.
correct.
Yes.
And then I think we've got to keep in there measurements inside a building, or maybe
Right.
the
I think we
person
should
might
do
check.
Yep.
Okay,
Page 7, we deleted that question, why can't a wind turbine be shut down?
well, we get rid of that.
Yeah, we
If-
deleted it.
We delete if a wind turbine cannot be shut down, we just take that out, okay?
Yes.
And then we go to 12,
And all the numbers got changed, right?
Yeah.
and
12 is what is the one that we're approving everything except with the exception of getting something back from Mr. Batarian about the 10 times, 20 times. So we're consistent. Does everyone agree on that? Dennis, are you in agreement?
Well, I'm just, the only thing I'm questioning, I mean, if we're gonna vote on this, which is fine, but if we had voted in the negative to these in the past, then, like, I voted negative in several of these. I mean, I agree with the changes you made tonight, but I don't know if I can vote
on the whole thing.
on the whole thing, in the positive. Are we voting on the positive on the whole thing, or are we voting just on the
The
changes?
changes on this
Just on the
document,
changes?
that's it.
Okay, fine, okay.
And with the exception of Mr. Viteri getting back to us
Yeah,
about,
okay, so we're voting
Question
just
mark.
on the changes, okay,
oh yeah,
fine,
yeah, yeah.
okay. I just wanted clarification, so.
Oh, right, because you voted against some of the things that we voted on, yes,
Okay.
that's true.
Is there a second to
Sure.
Becky's?
I'll second, yeah.
Any further discussion on it, since we've been discussing and discussing? All in favor? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
More to come.
Keep it coming.
Okay. I'm up. Went to the Board of Selectmen. They gave us an extension, and Kimmy, correct me, but they came back with an email about May 20th? March 20th. And having a hearing.
Yeah.
So we're on the clock now to March 20 to do what? Get everything done?
Done.
No,
To have an
the hearing for
extension.
the extension for the,
We're
Moratorium.
gonna have,
you have to
okay.
have a hearing for the extension,
And this is open to the town to
yes,
get involved.
But they don't, the town doesn't vote, it's up to the select.
that's right, but they have to hold a public hearing.
Okay. So basically, we don't have an extension. until then.
Till, right,
Until,
well, right now
the-
you're good till, April 14th.
Right,
But
right.
the select board wants it done for town meeting.
Yeah, they would like it, this, ready for a town meeting, which is May 19th.
Okay.
So to back it up then, for May 19th, you're gonna have to have a public hearing prior to that.
how much time before that do we need that?
2 weeks, isn't
2 weeks,
it? 2 weeks.
So what's that date?
first of May.
14, May 5?
Yeah.
2 weeks would be one,
Public
April
hearing.
30th.
So, and it also has to go through legal and everything else prior to.
Right.
So you're gonna need a month. You're basically gonna have to wrap it up by the end of next meeting.
So I guess on this, I'd like to ask a question is everyone sitting here tonight on this board in support of an extension of the moratorium so we can finish our work?
I will say, I would be supportive of it as long as we adhere to what the select board would like, which is to have this ready for a vote at town meeting. I mean, that's what the select board would like. Just, I mean, you have to go in 6-month increments. That's what, it
Yep.
can't go just 1 month or 2 months, it has to go in 6-month increments. But I wouldn't be for if we're gonna say, we got 6 months, so now we're gonna extend this out until,
Use all 6.
use all 6, I mean,
I don't really believe anybody here wants to use all 6.
no.
We've had enough.
I can see us having a hearing to discuss the new ordinance, and then the vote coming up at town meeting, and having a hearing all over again. Because once the moderator says, is there any discussion, there's gonna be all kinds of it. I would prefer myself to see a vote taken other than at town meeting.
Special meeting.
A special meeting, or the primaries are coming up in June.
And I would also say that, and the reason I ask if this board, if this committee was in support of the extension, because our time is short. If we can get this, if it needs to be on the board, I think if we go to the select board and explain that, we are this close, but we need time for the lawyer. I don't know how long the lawyer's gonna take and what questions he's going to ask of us. And we're asking for his advice on our rationales for choosing, the recommendation that we make. And if he thinks we need more substantial
Rationale.
dialogue or
Right.
rationale or written things, then that may require some of us to do a little bit more time. And I don't want to say that all of this is for naught and we're going without anything, and just to say, because if we need to do, I know that the select board would like to have it at the town meeting, but if that doesn't happen because of lawyer protocols and what may need to happen after that, which we are willing to do to rationalize why we've made the recommendation, I think it would be great if this committee would support that, and if, our voters would support that as well.
I think one of the things that we have to consider is the fact that our work is complete when we give it to the select board.
Your work's complete when you give it to the lawyer.
The
Well,
lawyer,
that's for them to do.
No, whatever this committee comes up with for changes to the.
Goes to the
current-
select board, and they give it to the lawyer. They're the ones that say, lawyer, look at this and tell us what we need to correct and what we need to do. So actually, the time clock is then in their
Right, so-
end of the court.
Right.
Okay, and I think they're gonna have to be sensitive to this moratorium extension date and act accordingly. I mean, it's not up to us anymore, because we have done what we said we would do and made suggested changes to the ordinance, and now you guys have to go through the process of the hearing, the lawyer, the hearing, and the vote.
Well, the lawyer's recommendations,
Then the hearing and then the vote.
whatever, if it requires anything more of us,
Right.
then,
So they're gonna kick it back.
So when is the committee, the subcommittee that is coming up to justify the recommendations, when are they gonna have their work done?
Rationale, yep.
When's that
by our
work gonna be
next,
done?
by our next meeting.
So that should be the sole purpose of the next meeting.
Yep.
So,
Well,
That is-
unless on, what is our last, item here, what else we have to do? What else we think we have to do?
There's lighting that you were gonna talk about.
I sent that to Kim.
Yeah.
Did you-
I
So,
think we
but
can
that's
deal
an
with that
easy one.
tonight.
Right.
I think we
That's
can,
that's an easy one.
It is an easy one.
That's an easy one.
it's easy.
But I think it also gets into sensors, because that is a sensor, in a sense, okay? And it's a damn good one, because it solves an issue that has,
That has raised
Arisen.
concern.
and,
So John, were you part of
and
that?
it's the night sky and all that kind of good stuff.
I
And
read the
then-
minutes pretty good on that.
What it is, John, is it's, here, I'll give you
Yeah.
that. It's basically, it's a radar,
Mhm.
induction for lighting, so it eliminates anywhere like 98 to 99% of the lighting in that. I mean, I think that's pretty easy language to put into it that says, you know, that you must conform to, and that gives that, you know, FAA approved, you know, and radar activated lighting, and that's an easy one to put in.
Mhm.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure what we got in there now, but usually it's, if the towers require lighting, they meet FAA
Right, and
standards.
right, and I think that's, I think you take that out and you put
Right.
in that this is the only type of lighting that would be allowed on a tower, because that way it's not an either or,
That's right.
this is what it is, this is what it is, it's a radar activated.
Right. And the radar is something that, I don't have to have something in my airplane to
No.
activate this.
It is in the airplane, it is in the airplane to activate that.
Mhm.
This activates, this, if I'm flying in my small plane going in
Yep.
at Colonel Dyke
Yep,
At night,
at night,
yep,
when I get a certain distance, this will say light.
correct,
It's not something I have to have in my phone.
correct, it's the same thing as if they have, when you're gonna go fly into the Bethel Airport and all of a sudden the lights come on.
Yeah.
If they're not on from 7 o'clock at night to
Right.
7 o'clock in the
Sure.
morning, they get activated when the plane's coming in
Okay.
on approach, so.
I remember on some of the
Same
old
thing.
ones, you have to hit your mic 2 times when you're flying
Yeah.
into somewhere.
Which is really nice when you're driving in
Right.
on the North Road and all of a sudden the lights come on at the Bethel Airport and you go, wow.
Okay, all right, yeah, this is good.
the way it was explained to me, John, is, and maybe this system is the same way, it sends out a signal. If nothing comes back from the plane,
Right,
the lights go on.
sure.
But there are planes who do have the capability of sending a signal back,
Oh, sure.
okay, and, you know, or avoid,
Right.
change course, whatever, and then nothing happens.
I'm sure they'll be looking at when they're preparing to do their low altitude training here, so they
Right.
wanna make sure that they can scoot around a little
In
bit.
the area of sensors, as I understand it, is they are available. And I think as far as the ordinance is concerned, we shouldn't require them, except when a complaint comes before us. And then at that particular location, then they get,
It's already in the
Installed.
ordinance where you
Right.
have pre and post, it's already in the ordinance, so I mean.
the site plan review.
I think you need, I think it's something that you definitely wanna have just because it's a safety thing.
Exactly.
And the fact that they've come up with something that turns on and turns off is magnificent.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we put in that this is what we would like to see, and I'm sure that's what they do all that, anyway, because I don't see lights on any of the existing wind towers all night anyway.
But sensors go to audible, infrasound, and also.
I thought that's what you were
But
talking
you're-
about, I thought we were done talking about this, I thought we were talking about, so
Right.
what I'm saying is in the ordinance already, you've got pre and post. So, if-
Pre and post,
as far as, they have to take sound levels prior to and afterwards. So, you can, I'm just wondering, where's this, what's the sensor part
The
of
the
it?
sensor.
This is for the lighting,
No, no,
not for the sound.
no, the sensor, yeah, what I'm talking about is a sensor for sound and audible and input and also flicker. And what it is only activated if somebody is in the complaint mode. If you have a property and a structure and there's people and they have been affected by something and they complain, then the sensor goes in.
Right.
And that's kind of like the monitor, it takes the place of having a code enforcement officer out there, and it runs 24/7, and they
Right.
test everything, and actually it can control whatever it is that's causing the problem.
So, it,
And I don't know how we're gonna get that into the ordinance
well, I
in a
think
way
that can be, could that be part of the complaint, wording that, you know, if its complaint is filed due to,
Right, I would say, again, if I was doing that, part of the condition of approval, and we'd probably want something in there, but a condition of approval of any
right,
project would be that those sensors shall be installed, period.
yeah.
Because I assume they're permanent, they just don't go set them up.
No,
When are they-
yeah, I mean, it all depends, I mean,
And the latest technology would be also part of the wording too,
Yeah.
because that's gonna be a changing dynamic.
Again, you've got some specific, based upon your noise engineers, a specific measuring procedure that you use. You gotta have calibrated equipment, you gotta have all this stuff. Again, I'm not that familiar with it, whether this is just sort of a, base versus going out, I've been out on sites where, the engineers have been taking noises and stuff and all the stuff they do. Something we'll look at. One question, if I may, Larry, on the moratorium. I think some thought needs to be given to when the extension of the moratorium ends. Does it end the minute this ordinance is approved or denied, or does it continue on for the period of existing? I think it's something you want to take a look at when you talk to the selectmen.
And the attorney, because this is murky area, that's right.
I thought Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the 6-month extension, so, no matter what, let's just say that these get denied at the town meeting, it doesn't mean that the moratorium ends, because the select board is going to approve another 6-month extension to the moratorium. It doesn't mean they want it to go 6 months,
Right.
but it does mean that it's in effect for 6, but there's no saying where you can only do it for 2 months or 3
Right.
months, right? It's a 6-month deal,
Yeah.
period.
Right.
So, the
That's-
way it's been explained to me
Okay.
is no matter what the action is, at whenever the vote is taken, the moratorium is still in effect
Till the end of that.
until the end of the
Okay,
period.
just wanted to make,
Yep.
we're on the same, all on the
That's the
same
way
page.
I,
And I would think the legal people would interpret it thusly as well.
Just wanted to make sure that there wasn't something put in this next extension that says it will terminate.
There's a
Town
lot of confusing language, that's for darn sure.
Very
Okay,
good.
the rest of my, item 6 here is revolving around the scenic view and the historic site and the comprehensive plan, which we have been discussing here tonight. And basically, the position of the select board was, let's get this done. And then we'll get into addressing the scenic view afterwards. And I mentioned that there was some indication that that comprehensive plan needed to be revisited every 5 years, and most of the towns had not revisited it every 5 years, and the state has not been very aggressive in enforcing the 5-year requirement, so.
I was reading, which is coming up on this other thing, but I was reading here that as far as what they're recommending in here is that
Proposing,
on
yep.
the decommissioning, we moved ours to 5 years, they're recommending 2 years, and I would like to change ours to 2 years because I think we could see some major changes in costs of decommissioning within a 2-year period.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
So instead of leaving ours, which we moved out to 5, I would like to move it back to 2.
That's DEP when you say they.
Yes, DEP, yeah. In this little thing
That's the
that,
recommended
that we were
changes.
asked to read and,
Yes.
and look at everything, and which
Yeah.
I did.
Um,
So I don't know if we address that right now, or
Once
wait.
we,
till do that.
let's hold off on that till we get toward the end here.
So scenic view
Now
and
we're on it,
historic
so,
site
right.
in the comprehensive plan, I think, I think our subcommittee is looking at defending what we have said based
Mhm.
on the comprehensive plan for scenic view. I also was reading in this what the DEP was talking about, historical sites and what recommendations are there, and I don't see anything wrong with their wording, which we could, definitely incorporate into our ordinance. I did, however, make some notes on things I would add, because I think there were some comments made by people, as far as, I think we just need to add some things that, along with whatever they say their standards are for evaluating view and distance and whether it's a valuable place or not, that we have to say it would go back to the particular community and what they have established as their, because things change all the time, and
Exactly.
you can have different vistas that become, if someone creates a trail
Mhm.
which gives someone a hiking place where they can view, and you can value that more so in 2018 than you did in 2002, so.
And these are proposed changes, nothing is in cement. They haven't been accepted yet.
Right,
And so we're looking at this from the perspective of putting it in our ordinance if we think it's worthwhile. And one of the things I thought about, and I don't believe it's in our ordinance, is the visual impact assessment requirement. And I think we probably should put that in there because it's pretty powerful stuff that has to be addressed in grading and surveys and a few other things that need to be done to look at view from as much of an objective perspective as the subjective that we discussed earlier as being a problem. 15 people in a room, you might get 15 different opinions on a type of analysis. And so the visual impact assessment concept is a good one. And the other is the box service and their effort to make it as objective as possible. And they go to great lengths about how they develop the questionnaire to go out and get opinions by a lot of people, a whole cross-section of people, visitors to areas, what they think of and what they don't like and all that stuff. And so what I'm looking at is from the perspective of an ordinance to make it so that we are clear that this is part of the ordinance and that the planning board is not going to be in a quagmire getting it done. Now, this language in here is pretty clear as to what the DEP is going to be requiring, maybe. So I guess the question now is, do we want to put this in, that a visual impact assessment is required with respect to the section on view? Because the section on view, we said last meeting was, it looked fine.
Right.
And do we want to add to it? And that's why I wanted folks to read this this part of the DEP's recommendation.
But if you adopt this, well, first, this isn't even adopted yet, correct?
That's right, I'm
It's
just cherry
no,
picking.
No, I know.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, that, I mean, if you put anything in there referencing this document here, then every time those standards change at the state, you're gonna have to change your town document.
No, I'm only taking one section of this, and that's the visual impact assessment,
Okay?
and saying we should
So
include
what
that.
page you on that?
The scope and scale of potential effect is page 4. And then G1, it says evidence of the number of turbines and portions of turbines that would be visible from various viewpoints for users of the SRSNS when a visual impact analysis is required or provided by an applicant. And what I'm suggesting is for us to consider the concept of a visual impact analysis as part of the visual assessment of view, or the assessment of view.
Again, in your current ordinance, you do require that if a commercial wind energy facility is proposed in location in or visible from a scenic resource, the applicant should provide a visual impact assessment.
It's already in there?
Yeah.
It is, I'm not sure that it's as detailed as what DEP is proposing. You always gotta be careful too. This may be less stringent than what's on the books now, or it could be more stringent than what's on the books now.
Oh, sure,
We'd have to
sure.
take a look at that, because I know that, DEP is, been taken to court, and the DEP staff denied an application, went in the application for visual impact, and the Board of Environmental Protection overturned them. So again,
Yeah.
one of those things I always a little bit cautious when we say, oh, this looks good, take it out, put it in, when you really.
John, can you read us again what's in our code ordinance?
Oh, geez, yeah.
I'm sorry.
This is under section 701.3.I, commercial wind energy facilities, except as otherwise provided in the subsection, if a commercial wind energy is proposed for location in visible or is visible from a scenic resource, the applicant should provide a visual impact assessment which addresses the criteria. Then it goes into more detail. There is a rebuttable presumption that a visual impact assessment is not required for those portions located more than 3 miles, measured horizontal. So there is some sections in there. The thing I was looking at real quick under the submission requirements was whether the submission requirements got to have a visual impact analysis, and I didn't find it right off. Doesn't mean it's not in there, but you do have some basis in there, and that was probably copied from the DEP standards at one time.
And these proposed DEP standards have a distance of 8 miles now.
Right, there's 3 and 8.
Yeah.
8 is saying that they don't need to be considered for the street
Right.
power.
Because I think in yours you have both the 3 and 8 figure in item in there.
And there's one other thing that is indicated here in G1, and that is a visibility analysis that considers the screening effect of land cover may also be prepared using a digital surface model.
Yeah,
That's, most people, that's what they use now.
Is that what
Yeah.
they use?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
and
it's
I
not
think
in our
that-
ordinance.
well, it should be that's one of the things that should be in our ordinance. Is that we should require that, because that's where you're gonna get the most, people are going to see the impact of any proposed, wind, commercial wind energy thing. They're gonna get to see the impact from different areas. You're gonna see it from, driving out Vernon Street to the Irish Neighborhood Road. You're gonna, from wherever you are, you're gonna see it from Mount Abram. You're gonna see it from 26. You're gonna, see it from you know, Bryant Pond, you're gonna see it from whatever, wherever.
So, which part of this do you wanna put in there?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, because this is, one of the things I was thinking of, and it's already there, the visual impact analysis, and then a visibility analysis that considers the screening. And I think that sentence right there, requiring a digital surface model
Then put it in.
is, I think, appropriate.
Right, and we'd put that in the submission
Right,
requirements.
submission requirements, yeah, just put it right in the submission requirements. It doesn't need to be in this ordinance, it could be put in the submission requirements.
So what we do, I can't remember correctly, but we have that submission requirement for scenic identification, scenic locations, impact, we'll have a model.
That goes with the application.
Yes,
Yes.
it's part of the submission requirements.
But I mean, that's still part of the ordinance, isn't it?
Yeah,
What
well, we
submission
get
requirements are?
we are, but we're gonna beef it up a little bit. We're gonna clarify that it's one, part of the submission requirements, and two, that they need to use a, whatever, you know, a digital model,
Surface model.
surface model to show the impacts.
Mhm.
And it'll still be within the 3 mile, the 3 mile, 8 mile will still be in there.
And it says a height of 40 feet be assigned to forest cover in the absence of a true DSM. So I don't know why. Can you address that?
No, I'm sorry, I don't, I had a question mark, big question mark at that point too. Dennis, do you have a clue?
No, I don't.
Maybe we need to
But
just
if you
get,
wanted, I mean, this is a submission from the DEP, correct? So
Yes.
Larry, what you're saying is.
Recommendation. Yep.
Right, so what you're saying is basically you wanna take those last couple of sentences and you wanna just put that in, you wanna put that in as part of the submission, submission part of the application, or where you wanna put it in?
Yeah, and that's fine, it's still part of the ordinance.
Well, you're on the very bottom of page 4,
Yeah,
okay,
Okay.
into the top of page 5.
yep.
And it starts with a visibility analysis
Right,
that considers, and then it goes into the digital surface model, and then a height of 40 feet may be assigned to forest cover in the absence of a true DSM.
Yep, okay. I think
Which-
they say
which
you got
is-
40 feet.
you got 40 feet,
I'm not gonna basically see that forest cover.
right. I think you're right, Tom, I think that's what that's saying. So,
Okay.
would you put, where would we put that in, John? Would we put that just in the submission requirements? In the,
I would put that on, well, I'd probably want to ask for the submission requirements and put that 40-foot standard in the, later on in the performance standard.
yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying, you don't need to put it in here, it'd be more effective in the submission requirements.
Right, yes.
Yeah, that's where, I mean, that's where you're gonna be much more effective in it.
but are we
As far as
gonna,
administratively.
are we gonna put in that we would like to see the digital?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but you put it in as part of the submission requirements to the planning board versus in this document here.
Okay.
That way you're covered all the way around, so.
Okay.
And that is part of the ordinance.
And
Submission
in that
requirement
way,
is part of the ordinance.
that way, if that is not provided, that's part of the findings of facts that it was never submitted. I mean, so that would be an automatic kicker if it wasn't done.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's why, and that's where I think it's, administratively, that's where you're gonna get the most bang.
And
for
another
your buck.
requirement is that in order for a permit to be issued, that a letter or something comes from the DEP, say they have the blessing of the DEP.
Oh, yeah, that would be, I think your
So,
ordinance
so if
requires.
these things are all adopted, they will be addressed by the DEP, and we will be addressing, and maybe duplication, but
But if we have extra things, the DEP has to come back and go by what we say.
absolutely, but the thing is,
Just
we're
one.
just covering ourselves.
That's
on
noise.
this.
Yeah,
That's the only thing DEP said that they would consider as noise. If the town had more stringent noise standards that they do, they're gonna make their own findings on the other stuff. He said they're gonna, because they've got their rules they've got their rules that they have to do. They can't, it doesn't say they gotta approve based upon Greenwood's ordinance, they gotta approve about what's required under the site location development law. So they're gonna review that. They could approve it, the town could deny it, the town could approve it, and they could deny it. Either way, and if you don't get both approvals, it's sort of like a tie vote. So, but they're not gonna come in and review your ordinance and use their ordinance in their review. That's why they
I thought
have
when
their
the
own rules.
DEP guy was here, were you here when he was here?
Yes,
I thought he said that if you come up with, you know, whatever standards you come up with, that's what we have to go by.
No,
Different
he said-
from ours.
He said noise, I think he limited it to noise, he said we will consider the local noise standards. If I
That's
didn't
not
say
what he
that,
said.
He said they would comply with it. Okay,
Yeah,
correct me, that's
He would
fine.
enforce the
did.
local, he would enforce the local ordinance.
Right.
that's exactly what he
noise.
said.
It's like any, it's like any.
You may interpret that, I've never seen it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think what he was referencing was that anytime the state makes any sort of guidelines, if the town makes something that's more stringent, it still goes by the town, it doesn't go by the state. So I think that's what he was kind of referencing at that point. But
Because that was when
that
he
was a
said.
lot, was many meetings ago.
And
so-
but that was also the meeting where he said, where he actually said, you can out and out ban it if you want.
Again, I disagree with that statement too.
So.
I heard
so
it
Larry-
cited.
I heard him too,
So
but I said I
Larry,
disagree, I
item
was
number
gonna quiz him on
7,
that.
so that takes care of what you were thinking about, where that goes into the submission, John, we can
Yes.
put that right into the submission, that takes care of what you were. So I mean, realistically, you pretty much now covered everything, I think we've covered everything. I think hopefully at the next meeting, when you folks, and when your subcommittee comes, we can discuss it from there, and then if there's any other points, great, if there's not, then it gets kicked to the select board. I think we're at that point, I mean.
I
Much
think
more
we're,
to
I
do.
think we're definitely right there, right,
So-
we're very, very close.
Now, John, you have enough information to make the changes?
Except what we're pending from.
Well,
Right,
that's,
I'll do
yeah,
that tomorrow.
I mean, so for the next meeting, we can put you on the agenda.
You can always put me on.
Well, you've gotta be here, John.
Oh, I know.
Come on.
Well, but if, you know, he, I mean, if he has a conflict,
Right.
he's
No,
already majorly agreed
you'll
to
have it.
most everything, so I mean, it's not like it's.
Send us a,
It's not a
send us
major,
a,
major thing, as long as Kim's gets me.
you got a hologram or something? you can-
Right.
Calm yourself, John.
All right.
Okay, so, item 8. Do we think we have anything else to,
So your remaining action is to. the last
Remaining
meeting
actions
this
is the
committee.
committee
Yeah.
brings to, the next meeting, our, justifications on our decisions, on the different
Mhm.
things that we've done,
do we debate them?
right?
Yeah,
And we get, we review what John brings us, sends us with the things that we've discussed today, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing, I may have not heard it, but did you set up a firm schedule to meet the requirements of a town meeting, come to
Well,
town meeting?
I think it,
pending?
yeah, I think, I mean, I would assume at the next meeting, doesn't matter what the vote is, but I would assume at the next meeting, you're gonna be done.
We
After
should
the
be able to
justifications of,
give them, yep.
after the justifications of what the majority of the committee have recommended, obviously, we're gonna have discussion about that, but then after that, there's gonna be a call to vote, and then it will be voted on, and it will go to the select board.
And
The
that's,
select board will kick it to the attorney,
and then it may kick it back to us, or it may just
You know.
keep it going.
but until that time, until the attorney may or may not kick it back, but if the attorney kicks it back and says, these are some problem areas I have with it,
Mhm.
then you have to go back to work. If he
Right.
doesn't, then you don't. Then it goes to town meeting.
Okay, shall we now get to comments from the citizens? 10 minutes again, folks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2.5 minutes, that's your first.
Mine's a clarification, something that I found very confusing. Maybe either Larry or Becky to it for me. On page 1 of the proposed amendments, first paragraph, any scenic resource to be impacted by CWEF, or historic site within 1,000 feet of any disturbed area associated with the CWEF. I'm confused, does this mean any historic site as well as any scenic resource within 1,000 feet? Or does it mean any scenic resource, period, impacted by the CWEF, or a historic site that is in 1,000 feet? Does it mean both the scenic resource and historic site are within 1,000 feet? It's very confusing right now.
So this reads, additional information for commercial wind energy facilities decommissioning plan as follows. Is that what you're following?
Yes.
Page one.
Yes.
Page 1.
Section one.
Yeah, that's,
Right,
yeah.
but it's right underneath that.
Decommissioning
It says location map,
Right.
including lot and map numbers, showing the boundaries and owners' names of the proposed facility site, all contiguous property under total or partial control of the applicant or participating landowners, any scenic resource to be impacted by CWEF, or historic site within 1,000 feet of any disturbed area. So, what that is saying to me is that all of these things have to be considered. Is that not what that says?
In decommissioning,
This is in the decommissioning.
okay? You're in decommissioning, remember Betsy, you're not
Okay.
building this thing,
Okay.
you're taking it down.
And does the 1,000 feet apply to both the scenic resource as well as a historic site?
Correct.
That's
If they're
where
gonna, if they're gonna have a problem when they take this thing down and be within 1,000 feet, we need to know, and the code enforcement, whoever's going to be overseeing this, that has to be, talked about and squared away before it happens.
Okay, that
That,
clarifies.
that's a whole different ballgame.
It's very
Yeah.
confusing.
Well, I mean, you gotta look at decommissioning,
Okay,
that's
thank you.
where we're at. Ed, you were second, I think?
Yeah, just the two items that I brought up earlier, you haven't discussed yet in this meeting, if you know, they were pretty quick, but one was about the view from Payne's Ledge
Right,
towards Long and Elwell and Tebbets.
and that would be a comprehensive plan.
I'm just suggesting you might wanna put that one, you said you were thinking of a couple of items to put in the industrial wind energy plan, and that would be one because it's not in the comprehensive plan.
Right,
Now, it is from Greenwood Road looking at Payne's Ledge,
Right.
but probably the reason why we're all here is that view in the other direction from Payne's Ledge towards Elwell and Tebbets and stuff. And so I think that's one that you might want to put into this plan. That's what I'm suggesting, or you discuss and you vote on it. And then the other thing was if you want to, the second item was the item that if someone signs an agreement with wind developer, that they have to register in their deed and provide a copy to the town within 30 days.
okay.
Those are the two things. I don't know if you wanted to take
30
discussion
days.
as
Okay, let's get to the others and then we'll talk about those two. Sir?
The scenic impact study, I would suggest that you have it done and the developer pay for it. In Milton, when they did stuff like this, it was pretty much a joke. Because they felt that nobody on North Palmer needed to be affected by the towers standing over the lake. So I would suggest to keep the wind people out of your impact study. Or
Okay.
make it that you,
Keep the wind
Find
people
some.
out?
Yeah.
yeah, that you find somebody to do it for you. that does not, and is not paid for, like stand type.
Right.
Stay out of standard. The FAA stuff, oh yeah, the other thing is to go back about 12 miles, not 3 miles.
So
Right
they-
now, the state is looking at moving the impact back to 40 miles in the western Maine Mountains. That was part of the Page's moratorium stuff.
For FAA?
No, this is the moratorium in Maine right now. The, Steve, I think it's McGrath from the Energy Commission of the Governor is looking at a 40-mile swath.
For the visual
You can find
impact?
that all
Yes.
online. Including the next one is, the ADLS light, radar for the FAA. Don't quote me on it, man, look it up, he's looking, I think it's 2020, they're gonna require it. That you have to be radar light. If it's also a tower taller than 500 feet and they apply, it's gonna come to public comment for 30 days. And Calpine has not applied yet for any FAA on that mountain, nothing. They basically look every day and get notices of any towers that are projected in Maine. And also when they do apply, they're gonna put in their application what type of lighting, because it'll be required.
By 2020, you said?
Yes.
Talked about blasting, you can also ask for a schedule. Because they may do like blasting from 10 to 11, take a day to clean up, do it again. I think they did that on Route 2. And they blasted the ledges, they had a schedule. I found the title, 3451, chapter 34A for the definitions of expedited wind permitting areas, and that's where you can find the deorganized, organized, and all that. And I recommend everyone pretty much read it because they can, hopefully back up on this one, that the towers are not part of the discussion once it gets to the DEP. They're exempt from discussion. You can only talk about the visual impacts of like the wires, the little shed where they hide their tractor and stuff like that.
Yeah, the proposed change that you've kind of been looking at, that will include local views.
It will,
That's-
okay.
So that's why it's so important to get it into the comprehensive plan eventually, as quickly as you can after this. Because that's what they're gonna look for. If you got it in your comprehensive plan, and that's, I didn't read it, but that's what it says in that piece I gave you, Larry. Kind of explain why that's the place to put it. And, but for the first time, under those amended rules, they're gonna allow local views to be considered. But you have to have it in your comprehensive plan or you don't have anything to consider. So that's why that becomes really, goes from, it's not urgent, but it's very important that it be done.
Who else wanted to speak? Yes, sir.
I have a few typo, inconsistency, notation type things on John's thing. Do I give them to him, or you wanna go, you don't wanna go over them now with everybody?
Shoot them to Kim.
I just give them to Kim or give them to you.
Sure, if
Yes,
it's not,
sir.
if they're not substantial, or
No,
make
no,
a
it's
change.
like, change this, why is this missing, or why is there no C with this an A and a C?
Are you gonna confuse him?
Yes,
You are? Oh.
We'll figure out, give me a number down there so I can find it and get me unconfused if I need to.
Joe?
Well, and to follow up on that, I was asked at the last meeting to provide my questions to the board, which I did, some of which were addressed and some of which weren't. So what do I do, submit them again,
No,
highlight
no.
them again?
Which ones were not?
Well, things like the definition of short duration sounds, I mean, what is that? Is there an hour, is there a limit to how many hours per day? You do put that in, but can it be shut off for 10 minutes and started again, that type of thing?
What shut off?
What I was making.
The loud noise, you shut off.
You're talking about the wind facility? I mean, we did address the fact that they can shut it down to measure.
Right, you got that.
Okay,
That you did get, thank you.
okay.
No, but even during construction, that type of thing, blasting, I mean, for certain periods of time, also whether, on weekends, that type of thing, not to exceed so many hours per night. There's a number of things here that I questioned, some of which were answered, thank you, but some of which weren't. So should I just resubmit the ones highlighted that were not addressed?
Well, the one question you just brought up about at night, I think we addressed that by saying under construction,
No night.
there's no night, it's 7 to
7 to 7.
7 to 7. So there's no overnight construction that we're gonna allow.
Okay.
So that addresses that. And what was one of the others?
The response time, 72 hours to respond is 3 days. Does it exclude weekends and holidays?
I thought we talked about.
We
that.
covered that.
covered
We
that.
said 72 hours and 72 hours.
Right. We've covered that.
We did cover that.
The sketch of the site, not necessarily the scale. Why doesn't it have to be the scale? That's another one of my questions.
What about to scale?
You have in there a verbiage about, sound measurement data report, a sketch of the site, not necessary to scale. I didn't understand why they had that. Anyway, there were a number of questions that I had. If I could just resubmit ones that I still have, maybe you can clarify that, whether it be at the meeting or not.
Okay.
Sure, that's fine.
And then also, I keep hearing people saying that you can't just say no windmills, but what is the 30 towns?
Somebody said earlier, 30 towns that have said no windmills, they just banned them outright. Yeah,
There's 2 counties that don't want them either.
yeah, so
Why do we
why do we
say,
have to go through all these hoops if it's possible, just to say we don't want them?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's what I don't
Just have a vote.
understand.
I like that too.
Well, I can't answer that question because I just don't know.
But
Arnie,
just to
maybe you
say,
could address that. Do you have any clue as to why the town cannot vote up or down?
Well, basically, Mr. Jarvis said at the last meeting, when I asked him, do you really care about what you're doing to the area? And he said, Maine is a home rule state, and you can vote against it. It's up to the state and the town. Now, I don't know where the state comes into that, but according to that, the town could vote not to have them, the way I interpret it.
That's good.
So why would we consider that as an
I
option?
think we've discussed this a few
We have.
times over the
Yeah.
last year, I mean, probably 4 or 5 times, that, yeah, we could ban it. That no town has been sued up to this point. I wouldn't want Greenwood to be the first town to be sued.
And I'm not so sure, I would just add that I'm not so sure that the towns that have banned it have had prime opportunities that have been proposed in their areas. And I think by out and out banning, you put yourself in a position to be legally challenged because you have not been through these steps, you have not done the research to back up what your decisions are on why you're setting up your ordinance the way you're setting it up.
Calpine said, I'd asked him the very first
Yeah.
meeting they had, because I'd heard the same thing from my treasurer. And I said, all these people wanna know, are you gonna sue them if they have a ban? And they said, no, we'll just go away. But that doesn't account for the landowner. Landowner is Weyerhaeuser, which is merged with Plum Creek. And there've been lawsuits up in Greenwood from 25 years on zoning kinds of issues around Moosehead Lake. Everpower has one project that's up there that they backed off of. And the reason why is that I think if the landowner, meaning Plum Creek, was going to take them on, they know they'd have a deep fight in Greenville. Greenwood, I don't think has deep enough pockets for a protracted lawsuit. So rather than risking that, I think that all this hard work they've done is so that they get something that's defensible. And them putting the town in jeopardy for a huge lawsuit. And we've gotten some outside legal opinions on that.
Thank
too.
you, Ed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Who else wanted to speak?
That was everybody.
Should we consider this mitigation waiver? And the owner of non-participating parcel and the requirement of the property owner to provide a notarized complete copy of the filing on the deed and all that.
The deed one is easy. The deed was, that's easy.
This is right here.
No, deed was just.
This was submitted by Ed, and it's called a mitigation waiver.
requiring, and again, explain to me, I think it was requiring that if someone wants to say that they don't care if it's next to them, that they have to file with the town within a certain amount of time.
If they sign a good neighbor agreement, for instance, then that has to be registered into their deed, and they have to notify the town within 30 days. Rather than, if there's no requirement, several years could go by, and you don't know that there's gonna be a development on your ridge line.
Okay.
It's like an early warning system.
John?
Yes.
Is this submitted to the town at time of submission of an application?
No, it can be submitted at any time.
I don't see what it does.
Makes you aware of the,
Gives the town notice.
Yeah, it's
Gives you
public
notice.
knowledge, it gives the town people's public knowledge of who owns abutting land anyplace.
It protects a potential buyer too.
Yeah,
You know, I'm not supporting the wind project, I can see what happens if you have an application submitted, you put that information, but, you know, as a property owner, if I wanted wind power, and I supported it, so be it. When they come to me and offer me so much for my, you know, for their easement, that's fine, I can take it. I don't see why I gotta register it now. Do you need to register land if you're gonna have a pig farm on your property? I don't know, you know, it just seems a weird thing to me to do. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying it's kinda strange, and I haven't run across it in, you know, 45 years, but.
Potential buyers,
It's gonna be,
yeah.
it
period.
is, but it's already, it's a matter of public record, because let's just say if any commercial facility, wind facility, if they don't own it, the land, then they're gonna lease whatever, the whole piece of, a piece or whatever. Tax-wise, if they separate out and they lease a certain, how does that go tax-wise, Kevin, as far as on the tax rolls itself? How does that work? Does it get taxed to the CWEF, that section, or does it still get taxed to the property owner as
Leased
a whole?
land is not owned, so it's gotta be taxed to the owner.
Okay, so that has to get taxed to the owner, okay.
I'm not saying not recommend, I'm not
Right,
saying you
this-
shouldn't do it.
This
I'm
is
just
a
questioning. I've
waiver, and one of the
The
things.
waiver is between individual
Right,
property owners.
right, one of the things that's always concerned me is, and I don't know if this is true or not, I mean, but I have heard that the waivers that have been signed are signed with a gag order.
Who knows, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that was a
Those
concern.
waivers, you mean, if I'm gonna give some type of easement to.
Right, exactly,
to a-
an easement.
To a wind company.
Or
To
say
anybody.
that I don't care that you're doing this next to my
Right,
property,
Right,
because you're gonna
Well,
give
now
me
you become-
$10,000.
Now you become a participating landowner.
right, in place of a lease of the
Sure.
land, you do the waiver
Right.
kind of thing. But the gag order, I didn't get that. If that's the case, I don't even know if it's the case.
Well, we
Gag
see
orders
what
are
It's every place
like
else.
bargain.
Right, oh, yeah.
It's more money.
I can understand that.
We're
Yeah.
beyond our time
Yeah.
here, but, I mean, but if you, 30 days, if you wanna put that in there, it's a big deal.
I'm not sure where it
I'm
goes.
not sure, where's it go?
Where does it go?
Section
Yeah,
Z.
where's it go? I mean,
It's gotta be some,
It's where you put your your pieces on participating.
yeah, but I don't have anything because I haven't got an
Right.
application submitted to me, so the planning board doesn't have anything. It would have to be some type of ordinance the town enacts, if we're gonna do it before submission, to say, okay, you've gotta do this.
I think look at what I gave in there, I think you'll see it, that it's the property owner who signs that agreement, has to do it, it's not the wind developer.
But who enforces
So-
it?
I'll tell you,
And how do you
Larry,
know,
Larry, why
who
don't we-
signed one?
why don't we let
That's
John
what-
have a copy of that? This is not a big deal, I don't think.
No,
But
it's
let's
not.
have- Let's let John have a copy of it so that in the next couple of weeks, he can figure out where he
Mind
may
if I
or
give
may
this to
not
John?
put it in.
I can get it off. It's something you said,
Somebody,
yeah.
And it's,
Again, I could see it,
section 8, John.
Yeah, I can see it, particularly when I'm submitting, so we know where the participating property owners are, but prior to that, who knows whether you're gonna do it or not, depends on how much they pay you, for my decision, if I was gonna sign that, right?
Yeah, they don't have enough money.
Well, that could be, then you won't sign it, right?
Hearing here,
Right.
so can we like?
Right.
What was the other thing, Ed?
The other about the views from, if
Scenic-
you're
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
have
the
one,
dual.
have the one from Payne's Ledge.
Oh, so you're talking about adding, you're basically trying to add Payne's Ledge to one of the scenic view things?
And put it in the wind ordinance only, because that's, you know, it'll be a while before you can get to the comprehensive plan, but you'd asked if it was
That
one of
could
the
be-
views.
That could be problematic.
That would probably be one of the views to include, because that's under discussion right now.
Okay.
The problem with that is, it could be problematic with respect to a lot of the other sites and et cetera. I mean, we gotta really stay on the comprehensive plan with respect to that.
I would say comprehensive plan, but then include it here, because that's why we're here.
But if we try to do it here, we're gonna be in the weeds, and I think that would be something that the attorney would throw right back at us as being a problem. Put it in the comprehensive plan, and the select board has already stated that they're gonna get to the comprehensive plan. It's just one of those unfortunate situations that we're faced with, and we're now on a clock.
And
it's
we'd like
sticky.
to do everything, but I think we have to take
Yeah.
the steps that we find that are the best ones that we can get to come up with an ordinance. But we certainly appreciate your input and understand that these are.
Last time I asked for one or two, you know, come up with a couple, and that would be the only one I would think
Okay.
of.
Well, thank you very much.
Set the next meeting date of March the 15th, same time, same place. And without further ado, I'll accept the motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? Meeting is adjourned.